I was walking down a quiet London street on a grey, drizzly morning that made it feel like the entire city was wrapped in a damp blanket. My mind wandered, as it often did these days. I'm 65 years old, married to Nathan for 40 years. Nathan is sweet, reliable, and kind. And don't get me wrong, kindness is good. But kindness doesn't make your heart race. Kindness doesn't excite you. Kindness just is. And lately, I've been wondering if just is enough. Anyway, I was lost in these thoughts, my sharp shoes clicking against the pavement, when I saw him. He was a young man, perhaps in his early 20s, leaning against a brick wall like he owned it. Tousled hair, a leather jacket that had seen better days, and, wait. Oh, my God. He was peeing. Right there. In public. Whistling. I froze for a second. My brain short-circuited. I should be disgusted. I should cross the street, avoid him, maybe even glare at him. But instead, I kept walking toward him. Why? I don't know. Maybe because of the way he was so nonchalant, like he didn't care who saw him. Maybe because of the way he looked, like he had just stepped out of some indie film. Or maybe, for the first time in years, I felt something other than pleasantness. As I got closer, I spoke softly, almost testing the air. Excuse me. He startled, zipped up quickly, and locked eyes with me. For a second, he looked like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Then, he smirked. Sorry, my bad, he said, his voice low, slightly rough around the edges. And here's the part one can't explain, I didn't look away. I stared longer than necessary. Longer than appropriate. There was something about him. The way he held himself. The way he wasn't sorry, like he meant it. The way he looked at me, like he was trying to figure me out, too. It was thrilling. And wrong. And thrilling because it was wrong. Finally, I looked away and walked on. What the hell just happened? And before you start judging me, let me say, I am not some desperate cougar on the prowl, okay? I'm a grown woman who has spent the last 40 years living a fine life. A fine life. But for some reason, for the rest of the walk home, I kept thinking about him. The way he held himself. The way he smirked like he had a secret. The way he didn't stop. At home, Nathan greeted me the way he always did. Hey, Grace. Where'd you go? Just out for a walk, I said, hanging up my coat. He had made me breakfast, fried eggs, toast, coffee. His usual sweet effort. And I appreciated it. I really did. But as I sat down to eat, I felt something. Not guilt. No, not quite that. More like delight. Because while Nathan drizzled honey into his tea, I was thinking about the hands of a young man pressed against a brick wall. So ridiculous. My heart was so ridiculous. Nathan kissed my forehead before leaving for work. And the moment the door closed, I did what any perfectly respectable woman in my position would do. I spent the afternoon looking at pictures of hot men online. Harmless. Just a bit of window shopping. No one gets hurt. But the next morning, that's when things got interesting. I went for my walk again. And as I turned the corner, my jaw nearly hit the pavement. Same guy. Same spot. Same activity. I stopped, watching him for a moment. He hadn't noticed me yet. I could walk away. I could ignore him. Mind my own business. But where's the fun in that? I walked closer, hands in my coat pockets. You really like this spot, huh? He coughed, startled, and zipped up fast. Shit. Caught again. After a beat, he smirked. This is weird. Like déjà vu. A glitch in the matrix. I laughed. Like, really laughed, a full, unrestrained laugh. And I didn't even realize I was flirting. Flirting with a man caught doing that. What the hell was wrong with me? I walked away after that, shaking my head. Just a ridiculous little encounter. Home was only a few doors away, and before going inside, I stopped in my front yard, crouching down to check on my plants. One of the leaves had a hole in it, probably caterpillars. I sighed, running my fingers over it. That's when I felt eyes on me. I looked up. He was there. Again. Walking past my house, hands in his pockets. When he saw me, he stopped in his tracks. Oh. You live here? I stood up, dusting off my hands. Surprised? I said. Thought I just wandered the streets looking for men with interesting habits? He chuckled. But I wasn't done. I tilted my head slightly, lowering my voice just enough. You know, I mused, I was thinking about you. His smirk wavered. Yeah? I said, keeping my expression perfectly innocent. Wondering how a man like you handles things, without a wall to lean on. He blinked. His mouth parted slightly. I smiled, sweet, innocent, knowing that, for a split second, I had left him speechless. Then he exhaled a small laugh, running a hand through his hair. Damn. You're dangerous. I just shrugged. Some men have bad aim. Some have small bladders, I quipped. He laughed, really laughed, a deep, surprised sound, like he wasn't used to being thrown off balance. Okay, he said, grinning, holding up his hands in surrender. Sometimes, nature calls at inconvenient times. He tapped his chin. Or maybe, you're just an interested observer. His jaw ticked slightly, and for a second, he was speechless. Then he laughed, shaking his head. You're something else. Lady Grace, I corrected, with a small, teasing smirk. Grace, he repeated, tasting my name like he was testing it. Nice to officially meet you. I'm Adam. Right then, the door opened. Nathan. Perfect timing. Nathan looked between us, raising an eyebrow. The young man, Adam, to his credit, recovered quickly. He stepped back. Guess I'll see you around. Oh, I'm sure you will, I said sweetly. He grinned, shaking his head like he wasn't quite sure what to make of me, and walked away. Nathan watched him go. Then he turned to me. Who was that? I waved a hand. Oh, just some silly young man asking for spare change. Nathan frowned. He didn't look homeless. You know how young men are these days. Always needing something. Nathan shrugged, accepting it without much thought, because of course he did. He was too kind. And maybe that was the problem. Inside, Nathan was in a mood. I caught him watching me, his coffee-colored eyes lingering just a little too long. A glimmer of hope in them. I sighed. Later, in the bedroom, he was excited, like a kid unwrapping a birthday gift he already knew the contents of. And sure, it was fine. Nice. Predictable. Then I lay there, staring at the ceiling. If I had to describe Nathan in bed, he was like a microwave meal. Quick. Predictable. Lacking real flavor. Technically satisfying but not something you crave. I needed something forbidden. Something raw and dangerous. And ever since I saw that young man, his rough, careless way, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It was wrong. But somehow, it felt right. He slowed down. How's everything? I leaned against the fence, my eyes glimmering. You haven't peed today, I said. He stopped. His short eyes widened before he burst into laughter. I held up a water bottle. Here, take it. Stay hydrated. He shook his head, grinning, as he took it from me. God, I don't even know if you liked the show. I raised an eyebrow. I was just thinking about your health. 8 glasses a day, you know? He unscrewed the cap and took a slow sip, watching me over the rim. How thoughtful of you. I tried. I smiled sweetly. His gaze lingered, curious. So, Grace, Do you always hand out water to strange men, or just the ones who make a strong first impression? I tapped my chin, pretending to think. Only the ones with bad habits. He took another sip. And you? Any bad habits, Grace? Oh, he was catching on now. I stepped closer, lowering my voice just a little. His Adam's apple bobbed. Yes, I smiled. Mine are so bad you wouldn't be able to handle them. He let out a quiet laugh, tilting his head. That's when I turned and walked toward my front door. Why don't you come in? We'll have breakfast. He hesitated, glancing down the street. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. What's wrong? Afraid of a little breakfast? That did it. He exhaled sharply, then shrugged. What the hell? He stepped inside. I shut the door behind him. The kitchen. I grabbed a knife and some onions, sliding them onto the counter. Here, I said, handing him the knife. I'm chopping, he laughed. I leaned in, watching him grip the knife. Oh, not work, I murmured. I just want a little bit of you in the food. He paused mid-slice, glancing at me, half amused, half something darker. I held his gaze, biting back a smile. We moved through the kitchen together, cooking like we'd done it 100 times before. It was easy. Natural. When I stirred the pan, I reached for his hand, guiding it over the handle with mine. Like this, I murmured. He tensed for a second, then relaxed as we stirred together. My hand on his. Neither of us spoke. When we finally sat down to eat, there was another kind of hunger in the air. After breakfast, I grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, tossing one to him. He caught it, raising an eyebrow. Beer in the morning? Now who's the bad influence? I clinked my bottle against his. You'll survive. We moved to the living room, standing close, the air thick with unspoken things. I took a long sip and smirked. Netflix and chill? He let out a small laugh, running a hand through his messy hair. Maybe I should go. I raised an eyebrow. Why? He scratched the back of his neck. Your husband. I waved a hand. Won't be back till tonight. I saw him hesitate again. A test. You don't have any other plans, do you? I asked, tilting my head. He hesitated, then shook his head. No. Not like that. I grabbed a blanket, draping it over myself, then patted the empty space beside me. Get in. He gripped his beer tighter. I raised an eyebrow. Scared of a little warmth? A slow smile played on his lips before he finally sat down. The blanket shifted as he pulled it over his legs. The space between us suddenly felt very, very small. This would be fun. I scrolled through the options, deliberately picking the door. The movie started playing, its dim glow flickering over us. I nestled deeper into the blanket, my body just barely brushing his. The film unfolded, a story about older women and younger men. I let my eyes wander to him. A glance here, a lingering look there. He shifted in his seat, shrugged, adjusted, trying not to react. I bit my lip, smiling. I liked his reactions. During a particularly heated scene, I turned to him and whispered, "What do you think?" He cleared his throat. About what? I tilted my head. The dynamic. He exhaled a short laugh, taking a sip of beer. Yeah. Interesting. I let the silence stretch for a beat, then added, "Do you think the older women are taking advantage of him?" He glanced at me and grinned. Maybe it's the other way around. I smiled. You think the younger guys are the real masterminds? He chuckled. Wouldn't surprise me. I leaned in slightly. And you? If you were in their game? His jaw tightened for a split second before he forced a smile. I think I'd be just fine. I let out a small, pleased hum. Oh, so confident. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking very aware of how close we were under this blanket. I stretched lazily, making sure my thigh just barely grazed his. "You're fidgeting," I teased, taking another sip. He scoffed. "I'm not fidgeting." I let my gaze drift down, very slowly, before meeting his eyes again. "MHM." A muscle in his jaw ticked. I grinned, watching him try to play it cool. This was fun. So I traced the rim of my beer bottle with a finger and said, "Tell me something." He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" I bit my lip, pretending to think. "If an older woman, let's say, was interested in a younger man, what do you think she'd be looking for?" His smirk faded just a little. He knew what I was doing. I watched his throat move as he swallowed. He shifted in his seat, his voice dropping just a little. A little lower. "I guess, she'd want someone who knew exactly what she needed before she even realized it." I nodded slowly. "Go on." He exhaled through his nose, glancing at the screen before meeting my eyes again. "Someone who didn't just see her but felt her. In all the ways she's been craving." I felt a slow warmth spread through me. I tilted my head, smiling. "That's a good answer." Finally, he looked back at me, holding my gaze. "Yeah." I held his stare, taking a slow sip of my beer. "Yeah." The tension thickened. The movie kept playing, but neither of us were watching anymore. I moved closer, my heart pounding, but I didn't hesitate. I kissed him. He tensed for a second, completely caught off guard. Then he kissed me back. And just like that, the floodgates opened. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me into him like he'd been waiting for this all along. I felt his breath, his fingers mapping me like he was trying to memorize every inch. I shouldn't be doing this. I knew that. But I didn't care. It was messy. Something I had forgotten how to feel. And we didn't stop until we were both breathless, tangled together on the couch. For a moment, we just lay there, catching our breath. Then reality hit. I sat up fast. "You need to go." He blinked, still dazed. I grabbed his shirt and tossed it to him. Before he left, Nathan's slow, knowing smirk spread across his face. "Scared of getting caught?" I narrowed my eyes. "I'm serious." "Move." Before stepping outside, he turned back, holding my gaze. "See you later, Grace." And then he was gone. I fixed the couch, ran a hand through my hair, took a deep breath. And then, the front door creaked open. "Nathan," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. He smiled, completely unaware. "Hey, babe." I smiled back, my stomach still in knots from what had just happened. "Just another normal day."